Welcome back to this episode of the Deep Penetration Podcast. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Danny, and I am a love and self-esteem coach that works with the LGBTQ plus community. And I work a lot with gay and bisexual men when it comes to matters of self-esteem, self-love, self-acceptance, and really just learning how to navigate and cultivate healthy and sustainable relationships. If this is your first time joining whatever platform you are on, please make sure you are subscribing, since it helps with us being able to continue to have these open and candid conversations. You know, a big part of this podcast is unpacking stereotypes and common misconceptions that we face within the queer community, providing tips and recommendations and strategies when it comes to navigating the dating world and cultivating strong and healthy, sustainable, fulfilling relationships. So, that being said, what are we talking about today? And the topic for today is the differences between sex positivity versus enabling. And I wanted to have this conversation because, I think there is a lot of conversation in the community about sex positivity and allowing for free expression of sexuality and all of those things, which I am a huge proponent of, right? I support any person who wants to explore themselves, their identity, their sexuality, and all of those things. But I think it's also important to try and figure out or at least identify where the line is and when we cross over into enabling sex. As a relationship coach, as a love coach, this is incredibly important because this is the difference between healthy sexual expression and unhealthy sexual expression. So again, thought the conversation was very, very important. And the truth is, sexuality and the exploration of sexuality is at the core of queer culture. And it's also at the core of the individual and the collective experience within the culture as well. And again, as a love and a self-esteem coach, I am a huge proponent of exploring your sexuality and becoming comfortable in your own skin. But we can't deny that sex can have its issues as well. I have worked with many, many, many men who struggled to see the differences between sex positivity and sex enabling. And although they may not seem super different, they're very different. And it's important to understand the differences. So let us define what sex positivity actually is. It is a philosophy that promotes a healthy and affirming attitude towards consensual sexual behavior, right? And it involves some of the following. All right. So the first one is consent and communication. I think sex positivity emphasizes the significance of consent, informed consent. Open communication about your personal desires, boundaries, and preferences between you and your sexual partner. It also encourages continued open dialogue that is non-judgmental and free of criticism. The other thing here is destigmatization, right? Sex positivity aims to challenge sexual stigmas, societal stigmas surrounding sexual diversity, right? Orientations, identity, practices. It advocates for a non-judgmental and inclusive approach to sexuality. And it recognizes that it is consensual at its core, at its base, and that the activities being performed are being performed because two adults are agreeing to it. The third thing here is empowerment and education. Sex positivity encourages you to explore and understand your own desires and preferences and learn how to establish boundaries. It emphasizes the importance of comprehensive sex education, promoting knowledge and talking about sexual health and safe practices. This knowledge empowers you to make informed decisions and engage in sexual experiences that are both pleasurable and safe. It also emphasizes body positivity. Sex positivity promotes body acceptance. It encourages you to embrace your body and to recognize that diverse bodies are beautiful and worthy of pleasure. It rejects body shaming and celebrates the uniqueness of each person's individual form. So, how do you spot sex positivity? It emphasizes and it focuses on consent and open communication when it comes to sexual encounters. There's an advocacy for destigmatization of diverse sexual orientations and practices. It focuses on empowerment through education, right? And comprehensive sex positivity. It promotes body acceptance and rejects body shaming. So when we look at all of those things, it's important to recognize that those are all very positive, encouraging, supportive ways in which you can explore your sexuality. So then we have to assume that on the opposite end of that, which would be the negative end, would be the enabling. And enabling in the context of sexuality refers to behaviors that perpetuate or tolerate harmful or non-consensual sexual activities. It involves disregarding boundaries, ignoring or excusing abusive behavior, or perpetuating a culture that disrespects individual autonomy and consent. So what would enabling look like? Number one, lack of consent or coercion, right? So enabling disregards the importance of consent and may involve engaging in sexual activities without obtaining clear consent or using coercion to manipulate, to get someone to do something that they may not necessarily agree with or accept. The second thing here is it disregards boundaries altogether. Enabling fails to acknowledge and respect personal boundaries, particularly when it comes to sexual interactions. It probably involves pressuring or ignoring the objections, or not really taking another person's discomfort into consideration. The third thing is it normalizes abuse and non-consent, right? So enabling also creates an environment where non-consensual or abusive behavior is downplayed, it's excused or accepted as the norm. It perpetuates a culture that tolerates harm and fails to prioritize a person's well-being or their autonomy. And I think this is very important to take into consideration here because, my experience within the queer community and the conversations that I've had with many men that have experienced this kind of situation or behavior, it's hard to navigate because growing up queer and having difficulties in regards to acceptance and rejection and wanting to be desired and seen and understood and viewed as equal, we have a tendency of really allowing our boundaries to be pretty weak in a lot of in a lot of situations. I work with men all the time that struggle to set boundaries because boundaries feel like you are putting limitations on somebody or you are rejecting somebody. But the truth of the matter is that you're not. Boundaries are very healthy and they're necessary in order for you to preserve your sense of self and maintain healthy mental and emotional well-being. And it's also healthy for your partner. It shows them what your limitations are in regards to, what you are okay with and what you are not okay with. So in general, I feel that we struggle with setting these boundaries. I think also just in a culture that really focuses on sex and niches of different types of sexual experiences, right? So like BDSM and degradation, and I don't even know if I want to mention this one, but like rape fantasies and stuff like that, like it really blurs the lines sometimes, and if you have ever watched gay porn or any of those things, a lot of the videos are about dominance and overpowering somebody. So oftentimes we get classically conditioned to equate somebody's distress or discomfort as pleasure. And we have to be very careful about that, because while that may be acceptable for a porn scene, it does not necessarily mean that it's acceptable in the privacy of your home, in your bedroom with your partner. So understanding the differences, even when it comes to hookups, right? Grinder hookups, scruff hookups, all of those things. If the person you are being intimate with is showing discomfort, be aware of that. Be cognizant, be consciously aware of those things. And again, it's a scary line, and it's a scary difference, or a line that's been blurred, because oftentimes, like I said, we equate those sounds to pleasure, and maybe sometimes they are, and maybe sometimes they're not. But really, all it involves is checking in every so often and asking the person if they're okay, if they're comfortable, if they're enjoying it, and those types of things, right? Because if you don't, you're straddling a line there. The fourth thing here is ignoring power imbalances. So basically, this means enabling overlooks power imbalances in sexual relationships. So, that can be related to age, authority, or even just emotional vulnerability. It fails to address these dynamics, leading to the potential for manipulation, exploitation, coercion. So how do you spot enabling? Well, there's a few things, right? So disregard for consent or manipulation, ignoring or dismissing personal boundaries of your sexual partner, or of your boundaries, right? Somebody's ignoring your boundaries, normalizing or excusing abusive or non-consensual behavior, failing to acknowledge and address these power imbalances that can lead to manipulation or forcing people into feeling like they have to follow through with these sexual acts or situations. Look, I can speak on my personal experiences, and this is going to be, something that's very private for me, and something that I have worked through. But at the end of the day, having these conversations and being vulnerable and being open about these things is very, very important. When I first started to explore my sexuality, in my mind, I believed that I was doing it in a healthy way. Let's just put it that way. Obviously, I had grown up and seen porn, and that was kind of my way of really understanding what same-sex relationships looked like, and the intimacy looked like, and sex looked like, and all of those types of things. So when I finally started to explore my sexuality, which was later on in my life, I thought I had a pretty good handle on myself, my boundaries, and my expectations. And I remember very clearly that one of my first sexual encounters, or my interactions, it's about to get real in here, George, so I hope you're ready for it. That's my videographer, in case, the videographer, sorry. I keep saying my videographer, like, never mind. Anyways, so one of my first sexual encounters was with an individual who was in one of my dance classes at my community college, and I had no clue that this person was gay, bisexual, any of those things. I just thought they were attractive. And one night I was at a club with my friends, two of my really good friends, and I see this guy at the gay club, and I'm like, wait a minute, I did not think that you were queer. So we connected, we hung out the rest of the night, we danced, and then he invited me back to his place. Granted, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be one of my first hookup experiences. I went back to my friend's house, I showered super quick, and I went over to his house. And to be honest with you, we pretty much got to business right away. Now, here's the thing. this was my first experience with bottoming, and I've heard a lot about it. To be honest with you, I was anxious. I was antsy. I wasn't really sure what to expect. And needless to say, this guy did not provide me with the best experience or the best memories, right? He was not considerate in regards to how rough he was. There were many times where I had asked him to stop and he did not, because apparently he thought that it was hot, that he was in control. And if I really get down to the details of it, at one point during us hooking up, he removed his condom and didn't tell me. So altogether, it was a very intense experience for me. And again, this is where I talk about sexual enabling, because there were boundaries that were crossed. There was consent that was not agreed upon. There was a lot of things that happened in this experience that resulted in me, having some trauma left from it. I still remember to this day, there was bleeding involved. There was a period of time that I needed to heal, and it just all around was not a great experience. And that really stuck with me in regards to where is the line of healthy sexual exploration and not healthy sexual exploration, enabling situations that result in you having to deal with physical pain and trauma and those types of things. I remember for weeks after, I was terrified that he might have given me something, and thankfully my cousin was the director of the LGBTQ center in Long Beach at the time. And, he got me in there and he got me tested for HIV and all of those things. And I know this is a very raw and open and honest conversation. And if this makes any of you uncomfortable, obviously, it's you don't necessarily have to listen, but it's the truth, right? It's the reality. It's raw. It's real. And that was a very intense experience. And I remember it was also like compounded on because there was somebody that I knew that I was close to for a very long time. And I remember seeing him in West Hollywood weeks after this experience that I had, and he just did not look good. He looked sick. And my other friend was like, oh no, he's just been working out. He's been, losing weight and all of that stuff. And I was like, no, he does not look good. Come to find out a couple of weeks later, he tested positive for HIV and went on treatment. So, there were so many things that happened within that period of time that I was like emotional overload. So what I learned from that experience is that it is okay to say no. It is okay to walk away from a situation if it does not feel right. And you may feel like you are rejecting that person. You may feel like you are a bad person for saying no or for not following through with something because maybe you were flirting back and forth and stuff, and then it just didn't feel right when it came down to it. But at the end of the day, it does not matter. Your safety comes first. Your mental and emotional health comes first. And if you are going to sacrifice that for a hookup, then I would challenge you to ask yourself the question, why? I think that's a very important question to ask. And ever since that experience, I've had my hookups and I've done all of those things, but I have been very clear on my boundaries on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. There have been many times where I have met up with somebody and been like, nope, this isn't going to happen. This isn't happening. And I don't feel bad about it because at the end of the day, it's a hookup situation, and it's not serious enough to where you are really connecting to somebody and getting to know somebody and all of those things. But again, it's also about being very clear in your mind as to what you're looking for, your expectations and your needs. If you're looking to cultivate a healthy and sustainable long-term relationship and you're meeting up with somebody just to hook up with them first and then try to build a connection, that gets a little bit gray, right? that's the difference between intentional dating and casual dating. And as long as you are aware of what you want and what you are looking for, then whatever you decide is fine. And at that time, I was just looking for something casual, right? Hookups and those things. But again, that still does not mean that you cannot set boundaries, and that still does not mean that you cannot, be very strict on what your needs and your expectations are. So, all of that to say, it is very important to know the difference between healthy sexual exploration and enabling. And these are conversations that I have with my clients all the time because it really contributes to self-identity and self-esteem and all of those types of things. So if this is something that you struggle with, if it's something that you are still confused on, if it's something that you feel like you need more guidance or more help with, I am more than happy to support you and help you through that. I will provide you with my information. You can email me directly. I'm here to support you in any way that I can. I have multiple different platforms that you can reach out to me. I have my TikTok, my Instagram, the website, the podcast, my YouTube. But I will try to make it as easy for you as possible by providing you with as much information via my LinkedIn link in the bio of this podcast. So I hope you found this educational. I hope you found this informative, helpful, supportive in any way. Please make sure you are taking the poll at the end. And again, tell me your experiences if you're comfortable with it, and let me know if you relate to this, or if you learned something from this, or even if you didn't. Regardless, let me know what your thoughts are on these episodes. And most importantly, thanks for just sitting and having a chat with me and for having this conversation. I enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. And I will see you in the next episode.